Hi, my name is Prometheus Butler, and I am presently a student at Grand Canyon University, majoring in elementary education slash special education. I am currently in SPD-300, professional, ethical, and legal practicing and policies in special education. My instructor is Jennifer Brown. Today, I will speak with you briefly about the history of special education during the 1970s, before the 1970s, and thereafter. Let's look at the hard-won progress. Before, but for nearly 200 years after the United States was established in 1776, little was done to advance the rights of its disabled students. In fact, over 4.5 million children were denied adequate schooling before legislation to ensure equal educational opportunities for special education students in the early 1970s. This was a dark period in special education history. But once legislation began, a steady stream of mandates, laws, and decisions presented special needs students with opportunity previously unheard of. Suddenly, the foundation of a quality, individualized education and an accepting, unrestricted environment made independent living an option. Now, let's look at the grassroots beginnings. Special education history just didn't stop there. The first advocacy group to fight for quality special education were made up of parents whose children were marginalized as far back as 1933. The majority of these family associations began making waves in the 1950s when their lobbying encouraged the passage of laws that provided training for teachers who worked with deaf, hard of hearing, and intellectually disabled. Those children were historically known as mentally retarded. The state's place in special education history. In the early 1970s, multiple landmark court decisions giving giving states the responsibility to provide special education resources and, and schooling to students in need of it. These decisions altered the entire landscape of special education history in our country. The 1970s brought more significant improvement to the lives of special education students than in any other decade in special education history. First, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 guaranteed civil rights to all disabled people and required accommodations for disabled students in schools. Then in 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act, EHA, guaranteed and enforced the rights of children with disabilities to receive a free, appropriate education. With the dual purpose of providing unique educational opportunities suited to the needs of disabled students and delivering it in the least restrictive environment possible, this law is still the foundation of modern day special education history in the U.S. today. Now we're going to look at two court cases in special education that were referred due to the rights of the students. The first case we're going to look at is Florence County School District 4 versus Shannon Carter, 510 U.S. 7, 1993. In a unanimous 9-1 decision, the Supreme Court held that if the public school fails to provide an appropriate education and the child receives an appropriate education in a private placement, the parents are entitled to be reimbursed for the child's education, even if the private school does not comply with state standards. This ruling opened the door to children with autism who receives ABA therapy. The next court case that we're going to discuss is Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District RE-1. The parents argued that their child with autism did not receive or did not make measurable progress on his IEP goals, and that the school failed to address his worsening behavior problems, the parents they advocated for a heightening meaningful educational benefit standard on December 22nd, 2005. After an adverse decision from a federal appeals court, the parents requested that the Supreme Court resolve their educational benefit question. On September 29th, 2006, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. Now we're going to look at some resources that will be beneficial and helpful for teachers as well as parents who deals with children with special needs. The first resource I'm going to mention to you is the National Association of Special Education Teachers resource. Now, with this site, there is a wealth of information on it, and they have listings. If you're interested in learning about children with autism, inclusiveness, anything that's dealing with special needs kids, if you're interested in learning anything about that, is the tab is listed on the right, and you just click that tab and you can find out a wealth of information, different resources that can be helpful and beneficial for both the parents and the teachers. Another site that I also had the privilege of looking up was FERPA, which is Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This resource gives a full text of laws, and it's just general information on family educational rights and privacy acts. There's also a Q&A section on which parents and teachers can utilize. The last resource that I looked up was Georgia Special Education Rules Implementation Manual under Georgia Department of Education. And I currently reside in the state of Georgia, so I looked up their special education site. And this site has practical ideas and best practice information on Georgia special education and state rules and laws. And this can be found under the Georgia Department of Education, which is www.georgiadoe.org. This concludes my presentation on the history of special education. Thank you.